It's the black guy in the corner, but they'd rather see a on the corner. They say I'm stealing Nick's clips like I'm stealing Nick's chick, not knowing that I hit him first week for the lick. I said, Nick, I could post here while you post there. Let's run the ads up, then let's meet up over there.
Good evening, everybody. You're watching America First. My name is Nicholas J. Fuentes. We have a great show for you tonight. Very excited to be back here with you tonight on Tuesday. We have a lot to talk about tonight, lots to get into. Big show. Our featured story tonight, we're talking all about Candace Owens. What happened? It looks like she got the call. Candace Owens has gotten the call. What a letdown. Content cucked and disappointed and totally betrayed. Tonight, we're going to be talking all about her 4.5-hour meeting with Kirk yesterday. We have been completely content cucked on this, and we didn't get a chance to cover it because it happened over the weekend. But you might remember, this week we were supposed to get our Turning Point USA live stream where Blake Neff and others would respond to the conspiracy theories about Charlie Kirk's death. That was supposed to be a live stream yesterday afternoon. And they were going to do it from their headquarters, and they were going to present all the arguments. And initially, Candace Owens was invited to do that live stream where she would ask her questions, she would debate with Turning Point, and this was supposed to be the showdown of the year. But then she didn't go. She said, I can't make it that day. My husband has people coming in from out of town. I can't go. So she said instead she would live stream the live stream. She would give her live reaction on her own show remotely from Nashville. Okay. Disappointing, kind of a capitulation, but whatever, at least we get the content. At the last minute, they changed it. And instead of doing any live stream, they arranged a private meeting where Candace Owens would sit with Kirk. I believe Erica flew out to Nashville, but I'm not certain. And they met with the Turning Point lawyers and Erica and other Turning Point personnel behind closed doors. And Candace asked all of her questions in private. And we don't know what happened during the conversation because it wasn't recorded, it wasn't streamed. We got content cucked. We were supposed to get a Candace Owens, Erica showdown. Then we were going to get a live stream. Then we got this private meeting. And today Candace went on her show and talked about the results of the meeting, and it was the most embarrassing thing I've ever seen. Rambling, confused. We don't even really know where she stands on the whole thing anymore. It seems that she's accepted the magic bullet theory, as she calls it. It seems that she accepts that Kirk and others at Turning Point are innocent. She's sort of all over the place, yet she maintains there is some conspiracy with Egyptian planes, even though most of that has now been debunked. So we'll talk about it. Very sad, very disappointing. And that'll be our featured story. We're also going to talk tonight all about Venezuela. President Trump has declared a total and complete blockade of Venezuelan oil coming in and out of the Caribbean. Major escalation. Trump announced at the end of last week that ground strikes would begin imminently. That's following up the naval strikes off the coast of Venezuela. And as of today, he has said that he is going to blockade and prevent any Venezuelan oil, from being shipped out of the country after he seized a Venezuelan oil tanker last week. And so this is your maximum pressure strategy. Finally, Trump said that he will maintain the blockade until Venezuela gives up its oil wealth, which Trump says they stole from the United States, which is really funny. Venezuela nationalized their oil in the 70s. They sort of renationalized it in the 90s. Their government took control of their own oil from foreign oil companies. And Trump said, they stole it from us. They stole our oil. And technically, Venezuela did not compensate the foreign companies, the American companies that were extracting the oil. That is true. But to characterize it that way, Venezuela stole their own oil from us, and now we need it back. I like that. I love that. That's the kind of mindset we need. Their oil is our oil. Canada's resources, well, Canada itself, it's ours. Greenland is ours. The Western Hemisphere is ours. I like that. It's true. We should do this with every country in this hemisphere. You're keeping your oil from us, and it's ours. So give it up or we'll destroy you. I like that foreign policy. So we'll talk about that too. And we're going to get into some other things. There's been a lot of news and a lot to catch up on, but we'll get into all of it. Before we do, I want to remind you to smash the follow button on Rumble. Smash the like button, leave a comment, let me know what you think about the show. Check out our merch store, Fuentes.store. I have all our new designs right here. I'll show them to you. Fuentes.store, we have the America First hat. Very famous. But we also have some new designs. I'll show them to you. Get a load of this. This is one of them. I am America. And there's me. That's me. It's me. This is me because I'm America. This is also me because that's me. And it's got AF on the front. That's one of them. We have another one that's I am America. Different design, though. This is me holding up the crucifix. That's on the front of the shirt. Nothing on the back. We have another one. See, I really just like this phrase. Another one. I am America. That's on the back. You know, I feel like I didn't realize how many of them said the same thing, but that's okay. AF on the front. See that, but we wanted one that was more generic. There's a couple with me on them. This is more generic. You can kind of hide. No one will, you could say you didn't know. That's another one. Then we got another one. I am America. Another sleeper design. This is for when you're trying to blend in. This is when you're trying to blend in at the office, at the gym, AF on the front. And then we got another one here. This one says America First. I really like this one. Kind of like a retro design. We have the eagle, American flag. So we're going with the theme. The theme is America. So check those out. That's all at Fuentes.store. People are loving the shirts. Very high quality. People are getting them quickly, promptly. And people love the design. So check them out. Subscribe at the website, americafirst.plus. It's $15 a month to get access to the whole archive of the show, plus the MP3 only format, audio only format for people that like podcasts. That's on there as well. $100 a month, you get access to a group chat with me. I'm back in the group chat talking to everybody, exclusive content. That's the $100 a month club. You just get to hang out with me. So check it out. That's americafirst.plus. All right, we're going to dive into the show. We got a lot to cover. And, excuse me. The first thing I want to get into before we talk about anything else, I want to talk briefly about the shooting at Brown University. And I don't want to talk extensively about it. I think we might cover it later in the week or whenever they catch the killer. The reason I don't want to cover it in great detail is because we really know nothing about it. We don't know who the killer is. We don't know the motivation. We can't even speculate about the motivation because we have no profile of the killer. Race, age, if there's some ideological leaning, we really just have no information. There are some rumors swirling around that it was a targeted attack against a particular young Republican, a young woman who was one of the victims who was killed. But as it stands right now, that is not verified. That is just a rumor. So we may go into greater depth on this later in the week or next week, whenever they catch the killer, and hopefully they do. But before we get into this other stuff, I want to talk briefly about it. I don't know if you've seen this. How embarrassing is it in the United States of America in 2025 that the shooter has literally vanished without a trace. Apparently, there are 800 cameras in or around the Brown University campus, inside the buildings, outside the buildings. We don't have a clue who this person is. We haven't found them. It's been days. And not only that, but have you seen the FBI investigation of this killing? Because I saw the videos on X. Have you seen this? And you have FBI agents literally walking around with their hands in their pocket, like 20 of them, 20 groups of them, maybe 10, 15 people each, walking around with their hands in their pockets like it's a school field trip, walking around in unison, looking around, kicking the snow with their feet, literally kicking the snow with their regular work boots, looking at the ground, looking at the sky, looking around, walking together, many of them women. And, you know, there have been a lot of disappointments about this Trump administration on immigration, on foreign policy, on the big stuff. And in fairness, it takes time and effort, and it's complicated to get the big stuff done. The biggest disappointment of the Trump administration so far are these kinds of displays. It's just not serious at all. And all of these attempts by the Trump administration, by Trump himself and his cabinet to project strength and competence to make America look like we're back, it is completely backfiring and embarrassing us. I think about the military parade over the summer where Trump said, we are going to demonstrate our military might like China or North Korea or Iran or Russia with a grand military parade. And do you remember what a joke it was? They couldn't even march in time. They couldn't even march in time. They had drones in the parade, but they were holding them in their hand as opposed to flying them remotely. Literally walking in the parade, holding the POV drones like this. That was over the summer. It did the exact opposite. It said, look at what a joke the U.S. military is. Look at how sad and diminished and pathetic the institution has become. Or you had a video from the other day of the Navy shooting their firearms, and they had a few women, and they're literally shooting the handguns like this. Did you see that picture? They're doing firearms training. You had a female Navy recruit. They got her shooting the gun like this. No recoil control. You have a shooting at an Ivy League university in Rhode Island, in New England, where the HDI is like 100. There's 1,000 cameras. We have no idea. This killer walks in the engineering building, just lights it up. I guess he used a pistol, they've determined this. Lights the place up, over 10 people shot, shoots 2 people in the face, and he just gets away with it. Just gets away with it. They bring out the FBI, and that's the demonstration. And it's these idiots like Pete Hegseth, like Kristi Noem, like Kash Patel. These people are idiots. And honestly, I'm rooting for the Trump administration. I want it to succeed. I would have been glad to be proven wrong about the administration if they really delivered a golden age, if they brought in disruptive people that would drain the swamp and do things differently. I really welcomed that. I wanted them to succeed. But they bring in Kristi Noem, and she's going out in an ice raid like she's a Barbie doll. She's got the vest on. She's got the cap on. She's running around. What are you doing? What are you doing? And Kash Patel, he wouldn't leave the plane until a woman lent him the FBI windbreaker jacket. He's eating at a restaurant when Charlie Kirk is dead. They've got a school shooter on the loose. He's doing a podcast with his girlfriend and Stephen Miller's wife. They got the FBI kicking the snow around. What are you looking for? What exactly are you looking for? Kicking the snow around. That's your systematic effort? Pete Hegseth, warrior ethos, warrior. And you have your military parade. It's a bunch of schlubs that can't even march in time. That's the biggest disappointment. What we wanted out of Trump from the very beginning in 2016 was actually competence. And I always go back to 2016 because that was the vision that realigned the country. Why has a Republican won the popular vote? Why did someone like Trump win the Electoral College in a landslide? Why has this movement been enduring? It's because of the blueprint and the vision laid out in 2016. And I always like to remind people what precisely that was. Sometimes I like to talk about how it was about anti-corruption. It was about money and politics and that sort of thing. Another part of that visionary idea of MAGA was that because Trump is a businessman, he would get in control of government and run it like a business. Instead of being incompetent and having perverse incentives and having career politicians, the idea was that Trump would get in and, bringing his expertise from the private sector, he would bring in the most talented people and they would run it like a business. If you did poorly, you were fired. And it would be intense and rigorous and competent, and we've gotten the opposite. We have idiots in the government. Absolute idiots. And it's actually hurting the country. You almost wish that we had Biden back in a certain respect. Yes, the Biden administration was an embarrassment. Yes, the Democrats are an embarrassment. But when you look at who MAGA is bringing into the country, Kash Patel, Pete Hegseth, Kristi Noem, these people are knuckleheads. Yes, they're ideologically aligned with the Trump administration, but what good does that do if they can't even do the basic duties that these departments are supposed to carry out? Forget about changing anything. Forget about reorienting it in a direction that is more right-wing. How about just doing your damn job? Have you ever heard of such a thing? This is the second time it's happened. Charlie Kirk got shot, and if the killer didn't turn himself in, we probably never would have caught him. Think about that. That was 3 months ago. Charlie Kirk got shot. The FBI had a person of interest, a suspect in custody 3 different times over days before finally the actual shooter just turned himself in over a guilty conscience or something. Literally. They said, we got him. Oh, wait, no, we don't. We got him. We don't have him. This time we have him. No, we don't. And then finally the killer said, I feel terrible. I did it. And then we picked him up. That was in September. December, school shooting at an Ivy League university. He's gone. He's just gone. Have you ever heard of such a thing? I don't know that I can even recall another shooting where the suspect just got away like that twice. And it has happened twice in 3 months. That's your FBI. And it's amazing because this administration is so obsessed with anti-Semitism. Think about it. I know people personally who cannot get into the United States on a tourism visa. They can't buy a plane ticket because someone in the State Department or in the Homeland Security Department reviewed their social media and determined that they are anti-Semitic. That's where the attention is at. FBI, DHS, state, all these federal departments, they're so preoccupied with what are they doing on the universities? They're making sure that no one can ever protest in the name of Palestine. They're deploying resource officers and anti-Semitism liaisons, and they want to change the curriculum in the Middle East Studies Department. That's the priority. Someone walks into a building and starts shooting people in the face, he gets away. But if you're in Europe and you criticize Israel, they're on it. You try to buy a plane ticket, they're on it. You can't come in. That's the focus. And it's like we talked about yesterday. There's a shooting in Australia. The perpetrator was known to Australian intelligence for 6 years. Guess they weren't paying close enough attention. They were too busy policing social media. They were too busy passing laws banning people from talking about the Holocaust or doing Nazi symbols or something. And now that an immigrant has killed somebody, now they want to take away more civil liberties. Same story here. The FBI, Education Department, State Department, DHS, they're so concerned about anti-Semitism, they can't catch somebody that's shooting people in the face. That guy got away. And even when they try to go out there with a show of force, it just makes us look worse. What do you think the killer is thinking right now? He's thinking, I literally just got away with mass murder. He's, I'm sure, watching on Twitter or watching on the news. The FBI is walking down the street, kicking the snow with their feet, with their hands in their pockets. I've never seen anything like it. Hands in their pockets, in their khakis, kicking the snow with their shoes like they're a suburban dad. Like they're a suburban dad like doing yard work or something. And they're all kind of aimlessly walking around like this, looking up. Where's the killer? Where did the shooter go? Do you think he's even in Rhode Island anymore? Maybe he dropped something. It's the 21st century. This is what we're doing. What happened to Palantir? So what is Palantir supposed to be for? This is the definition, by the way, of anarcho-tyranny. If you're right-wing on the internet, you have a confidential informant assigned to you, practically. If you're right-wing on the internet and you post something bad about Jews or Israel, you're getting a visit. You're on the Palantir database. They've got your health records, they have your birth certificate, they have your social security card, they have your student loan information, they have got a dossier, they know everything about you. And I'm not even making that up, by the way. I talked to somebody recently from Europe who came into the United States. He said he was detained by DHS. They knew literally everything about him. Some right-wing guy. So when it comes to that, we have the technology. It's the 21st century. We have the all-seeing orb. We have the seeing stones. We can look into cyberspace. Somebody just starts shooting people in the face. Well, we're back to good old-fashioned investigative work. I want 30 guys out there trudging the snow. But don't give them shovels. Don't give them technology. Just send them out there in their windbreakers and khakis. Just kick the snow around a little bit. That'll show we mean business for a school shooter. That's your golden age. And this is ideologically where I'm at. People say, what is my vision? What is my program? I want a competent government. I don't want a small government. I don't want a big government. I want an efficient government. I want government to do the things that it does very well. And those are things like, in this case, finding school shooters. Or in other cases, like having a competent military or deporting illegal aliens. We want a government that is made up of serious people. We want the smartest. We want the best. We want the most elite people employed by the government doing the job of the state for the sake of the country. That is what we want. And that was a big part of Trump's appeal. Let's be a serious nation. Because it doesn't feel like a serious country. You look at China and you know they don't play. You look at China's government, you look at the Chinese Communist Party, you look at law and order. That's a country that doesn't fuck around. That's a country that isn't playing games. And say what you want about North Korea or other countries like that. One thing they have down, they have order. They have respect for the society. They take that seriously. Same goes for the Emirates. Same goes for a country like Singapore. People just don't play. They don't try their luck over there. Here, it's a free-for-all. And worse, not only is it a free-for-all, but it's only a free-for-all for the worst people. If you are a black gangbanger, you get away with everything. If you are a school shooter or a left-wing assassin, you get away with everything. If you're an illegal immigrant, you get away with everything. If you're a white, law-abiding, tax-paying American, you are absolutely screwed. you are under the microscope. If you defend yourself or your property too zealously, jail, throw the book at them. If you're speeding, they don't even pull you over. They have a speeding camera, red light camera, tickets in the mail. If you're a young kid, if you're a high school or college-aged male, and you get in a little bit of trouble with alcohol, with a girl, something like that, throw the book at him. He's finished. We don't play around. But if you're a black guy driving a stolen car through a luxury store window and you steal $15,000 worth of merchandise, they don't even chase them. If you're an illegal immigrant, you've been here 40 years, you don't speak the language, you're working on a farm, they say, hey, let him work. He's not bothering anybody. If you're a Jewish minister that tries to rape a kid and you get caught by the FBI in a sting, they literally just let you go. They let you get away. But if you're white, if you don't sign on the dotted line, you don't dot your I's, cross your T's, you slip up, they're throwing the book at you. Now you live in an Orwellian nightmare state. If you criticize Israel, if you're too right-wing, if you're part of a militia, you defend yourself the wrong way, you own too many guns, you're anarcho-tyranny. And people just want to flip it around. People want tyranny for the lawbreakers, and they want relative freedom for people that are harmless. That's what we want. We want a lenient society for people that are productive. We want police officers to know the neighborhood, to let people have fun, let people, as long as they're doing it safely, as long as they're well-intentioned, we want police to look after those people, and we want them to crush the opportunists, the predators, the violent criminals, the foreigners, people that have no business being here. We want it inverted. That was the whole appeal. Law and order. And we're just not getting that. So I saw that FBI clip. It's just like, you have to laugh. It's so infuriating. I'm watching these videos. It's led by Kash Patel. See you in Valhalla, brother. Why was he not fired on the spot after that? Why does he still have a job? It was supposed to be Matt Gaetz. Could you imagine? Somehow we got something worse. Kash Patel. See you in Valhalla, brother. Should have been fired on the spot, even just for that. Should have been fired after they botched the investigation into Charlie Kirk's killing. And now what is this? He's got to go. We need somebody different there. This is ridiculous. Anyway, that's that. But I do want to move on. I want to get into some of this other stuff. Our featured story. It's all about, on that point, Charlie Kirk's assassination. And we'll talk about Candace Owens meeting with Erica Kirk. So yesterday, finally, there was a showdown. But unfortunately, it didn't happen in public. It happened behind closed doors. Yesterday afternoon, Candace Owens finally had a sit-down with Charlie Kirk's widow, Erica Kirk. They met for 4.5 hours with lawyers, with personnel. Candace asked all of her questions, and Turning Point personnel provided all of their answers, all of their receipts, documentation. They came prepared. And if you've been following the story, this is the latest development, because what was supposed to happen yesterday was a live stream. For months, Candace Owens has been accusing Turning Point USA of complicity or participation in Charlie Kirk's assassination. She says that Turning Point personnel betrayed Charlie Kirk. Those closest to him betrayed him. He was betrayed by everybody, she said. And as time has gone on, she has insinuated that Erica herself, who is now the head of Turning Point, as well as many of Charlie's close friends like Blake Neff and Andrew Colvett, among others, that they were all involved, that they either gave their consent or they participated in Charlie's murder. Finally, Turning Point felt the need to answer those charges. And they announced a couple of weeks ago that they would do a live stream addressing the allegations, a public, in-person live stream where they would talk about it. That was supposed to happen yesterday. And I'm sure you remember this. Blake Neff put down the gauntlet. He said they are hosting a live in-person stream in Phoenix from Turning Point headquarters where they would respond with receipts and personnel and everything to all of the conspiracies about Turning Point. He said that Candace Owens could attend in person and that she would be at liberty to ask anything. Candace Owens declined the invitation. She said, I'm busy that day, I can't travel, but I'll live stream your live stream. So we were supposed to get a live, think about it this way. We were supposed to get a live in-person confrontation. And I think that's honestly the best case scenario because that is how our court system works. You face your accuser. There's a sense of justice. There's a jury. The American people get to witness this on a live stream. We all get to watch. And we get to see the evidence presented. We get to see it laid out in a public forum, and we get to decide in the court of public opinion. And the accused will present their evidence. The accuser will present their evidence. The accused will face their accuser in person. And after that, nobody can say that anything is being hidden. Nobody can say that anything is being withheld from the public. I really think that would have been the best case scenario because so much has been said on all sides of this. Wild conspiracies and speculation, as well as a lack of evidence, let's say, from Utah police. They've not presented all their evidence or their entire case because of the due process constitutional protections afforded to Tyler Robinson. And so I think everybody would have liked to see, whether you're skeptical or not, whatever side of it you're on, everybody would have liked to see Candace Owens, who unquestionably has spearheaded the issue, for better or for worse. We all wanted to see her ask the questions, and that would have been the moment of truth. Is there even a rebuttal? And if there is it compelling? What is it? Everyone was dying to know. But she backed down. She said, oh, I can't go. My husband has people coming in from out of town. I'm busy that day. And that was a huge disappointment because you can't do that. You actually can't spearhead a challenge like that and egg everybody on and lead the charge, lead the mob for 3 months, pointing the finger. They did it. They're guilty. We have the evidence. We have the receipts. We have the names. And then when those people who you have been accusing, when those people say, okay, bring it on, say it to our face where we can actually answer the charge. You can't turn around then and say, oh, I'm busy that day. Oh, I got something going on. That doesn't work. Because at the minimum, let's say you don't have a responsibility to get everything right or anything right. Let's say for a moment that Candace is completely in the right. She can ask any question, say anything. And even though she frequently gets it wrong or has disregard for the truth or her standards are lax, let's pretend for a moment that doesn't matter. At the minimum, if you're talking all that shit, you have an obligation then to face the person you're accusing and make the case. Because otherwise, what credibility do you really have? It's easy to sit in your fortress, in your bunker, and throw all this stuff out there, make these wild claims. I have ideas. I'm taking on the system. It's easy to do that when it's only going in one direction. How much credibility do you have that the moment someone stands up and says, you know what, let's debate it out, you shrink and you retreat into the palace and say, never mind, I'm just going to do my own thing? It's not a good look. And it's the wrong thing. So she said she couldn't go. She said, as an alternative, she would live stream her reaction to Turning Point's live stream. Turning Point would go ahead and present their evidence, and rather than hearing it and challenging it in person, she said she would be live streaming it and giving her reaction to the public. And you say, well, that's not ideal, but it's maybe the next best thing. At the minimum, she's having to face in real time a counter argument. And we'll see what she's made of. We'll see, it's sort of like a one-way cross-examination. We'll see if she's able to answer what they have to say. Well, then they work out, just in the last few days, We're not even getting a live stream at all. And they announce that instead, Candace Owens will be meeting privately with Erica Kirk behind closed doors. So no live stream. It's not in public. We don't get to hear it. We don't get the evidence. It's going to be completely private. And suddenly, Candace Owens' schedule clears up. She couldn't make the live stream, but she could stream the live stream. Now she made time, and she had a 4.5-hour meeting with Erica Kirk. So she didn't have time to fly to Phoenix, Arizona, but she did have time for a 4.5-hour meeting, which you have to imagine involved time on either side of that, traveling to and from. She couldn't fly there to do it in person, but she could do a 4.5-hour meeting where there's no cameras. I find that really interesting. And they say that it's a meeting with a guy named Strife at Turning Point, Erica Kirk, Turning Point's lawyers, and Candace Owens. That's the meeting. She's there for 4.5 hours. She doesn't say anything all day. Today, she gives her recap of the meeting on her show. She starts out by playing a Jewish song and dancing to it, and she says, Shabbat Shalom, which I find to be very strange. She talks about it on her show for about 30 minutes and then spends another 30 minutes talking about a bunch of other crap. Really? This was the moment we were all waiting for. You backed down from the challenge. You didn't even live stream it. You caved and did this in-person meeting. You don't say anything all day. Everybody's waiting for it. Finally, you do your show recapping the 4.5-hour meeting. She doesn't even dedicate her entire 1-hour show to the meeting. Doesn't dedicate even the entirety of her 1-hour show the next day. She spends 30 minutes talking about it. I think she did more sponsorships than she talked about the actual meeting. More sponsorships for like pro-life and gold or whatever it is than she did talking about the actual meeting. And what she talked about, honestly, I didn't even follow it. I didn't even really understand what she said. It was so rambly and non-committal and half-baked. It seemed like at once she was saying, well, Turning Point is innocent. Erica Kirk is innocent. And they showed me some receipts. And Tyler Robinson's the killer, and he shot Charlie Kirk, and the bullet stopped in Charlie Kirk's neck because they saw the medical report. So she totally walked it back. But then at the same time, she comes out and says, well, but some people at Turning Point are bad because the vibes are off. No evidence. She just says, I don't know, I feel like something is off. She says she brought up the Egyptian planes to Erica Kirk, but didn't really tell us what the result of that was, what Erica said, or if there was a conclusion that was reached, and maintains that she still sort of believes in a conspiracy. And to borrow a phrase, the whole show was pretty fake and gay. Fake and gay. She sounded nervous. She sounded not confident. It sounded like she knows she's full of shit. It was confused, rambling, non-committal. Wants to maintain the facade that there's some conspiracy, I'm still on the case, but at the same time, walking significant parts of it back, and in the end, only spending about half the show talking about it before she launched into a bunch of other stuff about Tim Pool and other drama. And here's what I think happened. So what happened to the big bad Candace Owens? I think that's what everybody's wondering. What happened to that cockiness? What happened to the swaggering Candace Owens? For 3 months, this negress, this uppity black woman, has been going on her YouTube and bobbing her head. I'm going to name names. That doesn't work for me. What you mean? What you mean? That ain't work with my timeline. What you mean? I got the names. You don't want to fuck with me. That we've been hearing that for 3 months. We have been hearing this uppity ignoramus for 3 months, bobbing her head, cocky. Hey, yo, I got names. Don't you try. Don't play with me. Where'd she go? Where'd that Candace go? Where is she? What happened? Did they replace her with a body double? Is it AI? Check her earlobes. Check her earlobes. Did they replace her? Because we got a very different Candace Owens. Today, we got a Candace Owens who is sort of nervous, saying, hi, guys, Shabbat Shalom. Everyone's saying I sold out. What do you mean? That's not true. Those are bots saying that. I still believe there's a conspiracy. What happened? What happened to that same energy? She went into the meeting with this energy, giddy, grinning, smiling. Erica Kirk, she's talking about me. I know she's talking about me. I'm going to set her straight. I'm going to ask my questions. Tell me where I lied, she said. Then she goes in the meeting, whole different attitude. Changed her tune. She comes out of the meeting, whole different attitude. Erica's the best. Turning Point's innocent. It's just some people in Turning Point might be bad because, if we don't know, but we know it feels off. What happened? You know what I think happened? I think this is why Turning Point called the meeting in the first place. Because a lot of people that defend Turning Point were saying they're making a mistake hosting the meeting. They're saying no matter what they say, Candace will continue fanning the flames of the conspiracy. People said, so why did Erica agree to the meeting? Here's what I think happened based on my intimate knowledge of how these things work. The way the defamation law works in the United States is very interesting. If you defame or libel an ordinary person, a private citizen, there's a very low bar to prove that you've defamed somebody. So let's say if I talk about my neighbor who is not on Twitter, who's not on Facebook, who's not a famous person, if I take my neighbor who's a private person that just has a job and is unknown, and I start saying, this person's a murderer, this person's a rapist, this person's terrible, all they have to prove is that I was reckless. All they have to prove is that what I'm telling the world about that person is not true. And they win. And they get to extract a lot of damages. If, however, you are a public figure, if you're famous, so let's say if you're the president of the United States, if I say a lot of terrible things about the president, he has a much higher bar legally to find me guilty. He has to prove, the standard is called actual malice. And what that means is that you knew you were lying and you lied to hurt that person. And then they have to prove how much money they lost. So it's very difficult to prove defamation if you're a public figure. And it's even more difficult for it to be lucrative, for it to be viable, to win any kind of money, because you have to prove the damages too. How do you prove that somebody is engaging in actual malice? You have to prove that they lied and they knew they were lying, which is a very tough thing, because how do you know that somebody is lying? Well, I imagine maybe that's what they did in this meeting, because Turning Point brought their lawyers and they brought their documentation. And if they show Candace Owens certain information with a lawyer present, if Candace continues to talk badly about Turning Point after having verifiably seen evidence to the contrary, they can prove actual malice. They can prove that she's knowingly lying. Maybe that's what they did. Maybe that was the strategy. Perhaps during the meeting, Candace Owens was threatened. And they told her, if you keep going like this, we have now shown you the evidence. We will sue your pants off for defamation. Because why else would it be a private meeting? Why would it be a private meeting? Why would Candace take a private meeting instead of doing it in the public? Isn't that her whole thing? Isn't her whole thing that we need to disclose things? We want people to know? She's going out there saying, why does nobody care? Why isn't the FBI talking? Why won't they give us the evidence? Why isn't Turning Point answering me? Why isn't the president addressing this? But then she takes a private meeting Make that one make sense. For 3 months, the line was that we needed a public disclosure. That's why she was airing this out on her show. That's why she's showing private text messages. That's why she's attacking people on her show every week. Ostensibly, even if you're a believer, it's for the sake of public disclosure. Then you get a private meeting. Let me tell you what happens in a private meeting. It is not disclosure. What happens in a private meeting is a deal is made. That is what happens in private meetings. Private closed-door meetings with lawyers present is for deals. That is where deals are made. Deals that might not be well received by the public. That is where secretive arrangements are made in the shadows where no one is looking so that two sides can come to a formal agreement without the pressures of public opinion. That's what a private meeting is for. So she sits down for 4.5 hours, and I'm sure she was told in some way, shape, or form, we will sue you if you don't stop. And so Candace went live the next day, and she wants to have her cake and eat it too. She's trying to keep up the charade for her followers, but she knows that if she keeps talking, one, she's wrong. She was definitively told she was wrong, and that she's going to be sued. And what's sad about this is that the real enemy, the real problem is the culture of paranoia that she has created. Because now her own audience doesn't even believe her. And I watched this live stream today, 300,000 people watching, and all the comments were negative. All of them. In the live chat, all of the top comments. If you go to the top comments of her video, every single one is saying, I can't trust anybody. It's a big club and no one's in it. I'm done with this. This has rotted my brain. I'm going back to my normal life. We can't trust anybody. Everybody is saying that she got the call. She sold out. She even addressed it on her show. She said it's all bots. So I guess that's part of the conspiracy now too. The French, the Egyptians, the Israelis, the Beekeeper Society, and even her own audience that disagrees with her, now they're part of the conspiracy too. And the audience think she's part of the conspiracy. Everybody's pointing the finger at everybody else. And now she's being devoured by by the monster that she herself created. She whipped everybody up with this insanity, totally irrational, totally paranoid. She got told the facts. She's trying to save face, and she's now being devoured by the monster that she herself created, who is saying, oh, now she's in on it. Now Erica was at her wedding. She's in the club too. And it's a fitting end. And I think these contradictions are eventually going to destroy her. You see, she's becoming completely unhinged. The way that she is lashing out at Tim Pool, she did some Instagram live, pleading with her audience, I'm not compromised. This is the beginning of the end. These contradictions will devour her. And in the end, she is going to get crippled by defamation lawsuits. I know she's got a few of them coming at least. And that's going to be the end of it. Let this be a lesson. And the lesson is, our strongest weapon that we have is the truth. And the second that we compromise on our intellectual standards, the second that we compromise for the sake of some sense of partisanship, for example, I saw Ian Carroll. He said, you're on the wrong side of this. You're siding with the wrong people. This is an opportunity to strike a blow against Israel. The second that you start to engage in that kind of mentality, you lose your greatest weapon, which is the truth, which confers credibility upon you. It confers legitimacy. And that is gold. It is worth its weight in gold. Because think about the crisis that the country is undergoing. It is a crisis of confidence. It is a crisis of legitimacy. It is a crisis of credibility. That is how you would characterize the problem in society. It's faithlessness. Faithlessness in the elections, in the mainstream media, in the universities, in our government, in our law enforcement. in our politicians. It is a loss of confidence that all of the powerful people are being honest to us, or that they're looking out for us, or that they're even who they say they are. That's really the problem. It would be great if we had an intelligence agency that was actually defending the homeland and was made up of patriots and was looking out for the people. It would be great if we had a paper of record that was actually honest and looking out for the people. It would be great if we had a leader, a president, that was honest and looking out for the people. We would love that. We would love national unity. We would love efficaciousness from these institutions. We would love leadership from a natural hierarchy of elite people. We would love those things. That is what makes a country great. But we have lost confidence in all these people because they have abused their trust, or the trust that has been placed in them. The politicians are corrupt and lie. The intelligence agencies are corrupt, infiltrated, and they lie. The media is corrupt, infiltrated, and it lies. And so now people don't believe in anything. And most people have difficulty discerning because most people have not dedicated their life to sifting through political truth, which can be abstruse and sophisticated and convoluted. So that's why people are having a difficult time. They're unmoored. They don't know where to get information. They don't know who to trust. In comes America First. In comes those who are Israel critical or whoever. And they say, we have a better way. We are going to be honest about race. We're going to be honest about the problems we have. We're going to be honest about Israel and the influence of foreign countries. We have what the institutions don't, and that is credibility, legitimacy, confidence. And we have those things because we tell the truth. When it's unpopular, when it's inconvenient, when sometimes it's messy or it can be inconsistent too sometimes. It doesn't always comport with the narrative. The world is not always black and white. And credibility is something that is earned over time by telling the truth and having a good track record. Admitting when you're wrong. Being proven right even when it was unpopular to say the things you were saying. Saying a thing that will cost you monetarily or socially or politically. That is what gives a person their credibility. It's their willingness to tell the truth, even when it hurts them. And this is an example of what happens when you embrace everything else, the passions of the crowd, when you drop any editorial standards, when you don't vet information, when you're doing it for money or you're doing it for a grift. There actually is a conflict of interest. At some point, you have to say, if you're getting millions and millions of views, hundreds of thousands of live viewers, you're making millions of dollars, you have to at some point say there is a financial incentive to keep this going always. And you have to then evaluate, is this person doing it for money or for the sake of the truth? That becomes a conflict of interest. And I think this is an example of that runaway train where, let's be honest, the conspiracy theorists are now in the driver's seat. It is now popular. It is now lucrative. There is no censorship anymore. It's not like it was 10 years ago. 10 years ago, if you were a conspiracy theorist, you were ostracized, you made no money, you were censored, you were ridiculed. It was actually, you had to care about the truth more than anything to say those things because it cost you. Let's be honest, it isn't that way anymore. Candace Owens is probably the #1 political live streamer or political content creator in the country by far. 300,000 live viewers today. She's making more money maybe than anybody as a conspiracy theorist. So it's not like it was. And now there are these perverse incentives where it just pays to be paranoid. It just pays to throw shit at the wall and say, oh, I don't believe in that. I'm just asking questions. Oh, this stinks. Oh, this looks ridiculous. There's now a powerful financial incentive to just say that for the sake of the money because there's a general climate of suspicion. And that's why now it is the job of the genuine conspiracy theorist to exercise judgment, prudence, restraint. The pendulum has swung. Now everyone's a conspiracy theorist and the mob is whipped up and they will go with anything, any crumb, any seed of doubt. They will take it and run with it. Now it's our job to be restrained. Now it's our job to lead, actually, in a different way. And for those that cannot discern, to actually provide objective analysis. And Candace Owens was not doing that. And now she is being devoured by her own audience. She told her audience, there's this completely insane conspiracy. Everyone's in on it. It was told to me in a dream. We don't know anything, but we know somehow because we feel like it. And consequently, now that she has been told the facts, backed up by the threat of a lawsuit, now she's in this impossible situation. If she tells the truth, they're not going to believe her. If she lies, she's going to get sued and destroyed. So she's trying to satisfy everybody, and her audience turns on her and says, you know what, I'm just going to bury my head in the sand all over again. She has set back the movement probably 5 years in every way. So let that be a lesson. Now she's cracking up. Where does she take it from here? Who knows? And I think I will at some point be doing an expose about her and where she came from. This is an all too familiar pattern. Who is this person? And I said it to her face when I did her show. For all these people, they say, you know, you talk so much. I said it to her face. I said, when I was 18 in 2017, I got canceled for criticizing Israel. You're 10 years older than me. What's your excuse? Where was Candace Owens in 2015? She was suing people for racism. She was suing her landlord, trying to get out of paying her rent, saying that she was infected with black mold and she totally faked it so she could avoid paying her rent. She was doxing conservatives with social autopsy. Then she was telling everybody blacks were going to vote Republican. Never happened. Complete grift. How much money did she pocket from Turning Point selling that fucking lie? Then she worked for Daily Wire. She literally worked for the enemy. Now she's a conspiracy theorist. So what's the pattern here? You have some people like me. I have been consistent for 10 years. Criticizing Israel. The show's called America First. We're race realist, immigration moratorium, trying to infiltrate the Trump admin, trying to secure succession for someone more right-wing than Trump. I have been consistent for 10 years. When it's popular, when it's unpopular. When you get censored, when you get sponsored. When you lose all your friends, when you make a lot of friends. I've been doing that for 10 years since I became an adult. Candace, on the other hand, for 10 years, it's been one grift after another. Selling your land, suing your landlord, suing your white ex-boyfriend for racism, doxing conservatives, telling everybody you're going to get black people to vote Republican, holding down the fort at Daily Wire. She was on an episode of Mr. fucking Burcham, bro. She did an episode of Mr. Burcham. She's in a rap video from 10 years ago. She is another typical political whore. She is a political whore. And I know a lot of them, and they're not all female. That's not a sexist, misogynistic thing. These people are political whores. And I'm sure you know them. They will go anywhere where there's a check. They will go anywhere, do anything, any video, it's like Alex Clark, for example. Where was Alex Clark before she was on Politics? She was on like Big Brother. She was on like a dating show in a jacuzzi. It's like there are a lot of people in the political world. They now have shows. Where were they before they were on shows? They were with talent agencies. They were in commercials. They were in music videos. They were on reality shows because these are people that desperately wanted fame, desperately wanted that lifestyle. And eventually they landed in conservative politics, the biggest grift of all. And so there's a familiar trajectory. They're with a talent agency. Maybe they dabbled with they were a cam whore. Maybe they were in a music video. Maybe they were on some low-rent reality show. And eventually they got into normie Republican politics, spewing bullshit. They're like pro-Trump. They're telling people vote Republican. They're saying conservatism's a new punk rock or whatever. And now that everyone's hating on Israel, now they're that too. Oh, look, Nick Fuentes is viral for hating on Israel. Candace Owens, Tucker's viral for hating on Israel. It's literally free engagement. Can't believe it's not patched. And now they're on that bandwagon. Like that's literally the pattern with many of these people. And at the minimum, I have a lot of respect for, I would call them entryists, institutionalists. There are a lot of people inside, let's say, Turning Point or the conservative movement. I don't agree with these people. And I don't agree with their politics. But I have a lot more respect for them because many of them earnestly believe, some, not all, but they earnestly believe that change will come through an institutional approach. And they dedicate their life to like GOP organizing because they think that's how we can change the country. Okay, I don't really agree with that sort of approach, but they believe in it. And then you got these e-celebrities that glom on, and they're literally do anything for a check. They want to be Oprah. They want to be famous. They want to be an influencer. They want to be an Instagram model, celebrity. And if they ever got a more attractive offer to do anything else, they would take it in a heartbeat. If they got offered a record deal, if they got offered a contract to be a reality show host, they would do that in 5 seconds flat. Because this is literally for them just a stepping stone into superstardom. And we have to recognize that the incentives are such that now everyone's criticizing Israel because they see that as a stepping stone. So we now actually have to exercise some judgment, discernment, restraint. That's why I said from the beginning, I don't buy all this stuff. And I'm not about to, oh, well, everyone's blaming Israel. I'm going to hop on that train because I'm that guy and it fits my brand and it would be unpopular if I didn't. I'm not about to start doing that anytime soon. I haven't done it for 10 years. I'm not going to start doing it now because you see what that creates. It's good in the short term. Sure, she made a lot of money, but in the long term, well, we'll see how that goes. So anyway, that was the Erica Candace meeting. What a letdown. Total content cucking too. That's the biggest disappointment of all because she raised that challenge. I'm on a crusade. I'm at war with Erica. And they said, okay, put up or shut up. And she said, oh, my husband won't let me. My husband won't let me. And then she agrees to a closed-door meeting where she took a deal. She agreed to a closed-door meeting where she got the call. She took a deal. She shook hands on it, and she got scared. And then she comes the next day, and all that swagger, all that cockiness has left her body. It has evaporated from her. Now she's just a mom again. So, serves you right, you trusted a woman. This is, once again, I will remind you, this is what happens. It's too many women. Marjorie Greene, Megyn Kelly, Candace Owens. It's too many women. And as a man, I'm going to start to say, look, I'm going to be honest here for a second, and I hope you can handle this. How is it that the conservative movement is constantly preaching traditional values, a return to masculinity, strength, and nationalism? But it's all women running the show. All women. Who is our political hero? Marjorie Greene. Who's our thought leader? Candace Owens. Who's the mediator? Megyn Kelly. Even, I'll say I don't agree with it, who's in charge of Turning Point? Erica Kirk. What's with all the women? How do you expect to win over young men if it's all women in charge? 1. 2, how can you win over anybody if you're inconsistent? How are you telling everybody, we need to have more babies, get married young, have more kids than you can afford, all this? Biblical masculinity, biblical values, and then you tell the men, submit to a woman, submit to your female boss. And Tucker Carlson's the biggest offender. Tucker has this facade like he's this bro. I'm a bro. Ooh, I'm chewing my Zyn. And hey, I just like to fucking chew Zyn and I'm all out of Zyn. And I'm just a normal dude, bro. And he endlessly simps for women and pussy worships. Like Tucker Carlson worships pussy. He's a pussy worshiper. Not to be vulgar, if maybe you prefer a different expression, he's pussy whipped. Nobody will tell these women what's up. I told Candace to her face, I said, you're a woman. I don't want to hear you critique my social life. I don't want to hear you tell me what to do about marriage. You're a woman. Don't tell me what to do. You have no authority over me. You're not my wife. I'm not your husband, tragically. You can't tell me what to do. And I say the same to Piers Morgan, who's a female, basically spiritually female. I say the same thing to all these people. Women can't tell us what to do. Where are the men? And people say, well, you're not the shining example of masculinity. You're right. You're right. So where are they then? I get all these married guys. They're like, oh, this kid, he's not a father. He's not married. He's a little twerp. Okay, true. Yeah, fair enough. So where are all the married guys? Where are all the dads that are going to put their foot down and say, you know what? The man is the man of the house. And the man should be the man of the conservative movement too. But they're not saying that. They're telling all these young guys, get ready to submit to your wives forever. Get ready and sign up to serve your wife. You need to earn her affection with servant leadership. If your wife is cheating on you, if your wife is bossing you around, if your wife is being a bitch, well, you're just not man enough. That's on you. You need to serve her better. You need to get her more money to buy shit. You need to eat more box. And I'm over here saying, hey, listen, I know I'm the fucking incel loser, but we need to put women in their place. And it starts with our political movement. So it's too many women. Megyn Kelly, Candace Owens. It's enough already. It's enough already. We've had enough of that. We don't need women setting the speed limit for the boys and men to make up the right-wing movement, telling them that's inappropriate. That's not acceptable. You know, Candace is calling Tim Pool a faggot. It's one thing if a man calls Tim Pool a faggot. I don't want to hear women calling men faggots. That's disgusting. And honestly, George Farmer needs to put his wife in her place. Could you imagine your wife has a show in the first place, then your wife is emasculating other men? Tim Pool, by the way, say what you want about him. This guy has been shot at. And I hate to say it because me and Tim Pool have not had a good relationship and we disagree on a lot of things. But Tim Pool actually faces the music. He's out there. He was out there facing Antifa 10 years ago as a citizen journalist. He's out there at his compound getting shot at. And he doesn't back down. When he gets shot at, he doesn't go and shrivel up and complain. Who are you? You're somebody's wife? You're some woman? He's a faggot. He's not gay, but he's a pussy. Oh my goodness. Women should not feel so comfortable talking about men like that in public, especially men that are not their husbands. A married woman is going out and attacking other men like this, mouthing off to other men. If I were Tim Pool, I would say, hey, George, can I beat the fuck out of your wife or are you going to do it? What kind of man will entertain that? What kind of man should even be expected to entertain that? You're a public figure. You're a man. Some black woman is attacking your masculinity. You're going to sit there and argue? It's like, hey, George, can I slap your wife or are you going to do your job? And I'm not encouraging violence against women, but that's totally out of line. That is totally inappropriate. And that is part of the problem. It's that women have no accountability. They talk like men, they have jobs like men, they lead like men, but unlike men, no accountability. If you're a man saying that about another man, you would expect to get your ass kicked or you'd expect to get in a fight. But you can't put hands on a woman. So what are you going to do? You're going to argue with a woman? That's women's specialty. They're going to try to trigger you emotionally, manipulative, and they know they're never going to get hit. They know nothing bad is ever going to happen. That's why they can't talk like men. That's why they can't grapple with men, because we all know that you can never hold them accountable. That's your husband's job to hold them accountable. So and that's maybe the most evil thing about all this. You're out there pushing traditional values. Candace wants to have it all ways. She goes on her show and says, I have to take it up with my husband. My husband tells me what to do. My man tells me what to do. And then she's on her show mouthing off. Okay, so what is this trad family exactly? First of all, he's the son of a lord. You're a ghetto live streamer. That's not trad. Second of all, he's white and from England. You're black and from the ghetto. That's not very trad either. 3, you're a public figure, famous. You're talking about I'm powerful and rich and influential. And what's he doing? He's in the cuck chair? That's not traditional either. And she's the first one to say, make him a sandwich. I'm not a feminist. I am done with these trad feminists. I am done with the trad thoughts, the trad whores, trad this and trad that. We're cargo culting traditionalism. It's a simulacrum of traditionalism. It's a representation of a representation that never existed. A situation where women get to do whatever the fuck they want, but men have all these obligations. You young men need to shut up and get married and man up. You need to go and work in a factory and live in Ohio. You need to go and work at a nail factory and live in southern Indiana and shut the fuck up and just pay for your wife's stuff and pull her chair out for her and be masculine and work with your hands and be this and be that. Oh, but your wife? Well, she has no accountability. She can have a job. She can talk however she wants. She can condescend to you and she can be a bitch. And she can talk however she likes in public and act a fool. She can have an Instagram and you take pictures for her. I'm sorry, is that how it was in the 1900s? Is that how it was in the 1800s? Is that how it was in traditional times? That's your 50s cargo cult. Where the man's got to be the man's man, put yourself last, servant leadership, shut up, and you need to really be into your domestic life. Don't be a polygamist and don't do these other things. Oh, but your wife? Oh, she could call Tim Pool a faggot on her show where she's bringing down $500 million defamation lawsuits every day. George Farmer, control your bitch. George Farmer, and listen, I like the guy. I met him. I know he doesn't approve of how I talk about his wife. I deserve a slap or a punch from him, honestly. Nice guy. But George, get your bitch in line. Control your bitch. You can't have your wife talking about other men like that. Honestly, Tim Pool should beat the shit out of George Farmer. He's got that coming. A lot of people should be kicking George Farmer's ass for the way his wife has been talking. He's got that coming. And I'm not encouraging that. I'm not calling for violence, but I'm saying, listen, that don't fly. That's not cool. You want to be a trad movement? You want to be a trad marriage? Tell your wife to watch your mouth. You can't be talking about men like that if you're a married woman. It's disgusting. It's not traditional. They're the first ones to say everybody should be in a trad marriage, but your wife is going to be a complete mouthing off like that. What world you from? Where's that trad? Where's that traditional? You think that flies in China? You think that flies in Saudi Arabia? In Saudi Arabia, the women can't even touch men that aren't their husband. And I'm not saying we should be like Saudi Arabia, but could you imagine a society where somebody's wife is out there saying, that guy's that guy is that guy is like feminine. This guy's a. It would never fly in any traditional country, in any traditional time period. It's insane. The same goes for Megyn Kelly. Going out there, tone policing everybody, telling Donald Trump, you called women disgusting slobs. Nick Fuentes killed Ben Shapiro in Grand Theft Auto. Sorry, what are you, my mom? Last time I checked, you're some Fox News talk show host. You're not my mom. You have no authority over me. Oh, you don't like my tone? Well, you're a woman. Frankly, you're a sensitive, emotional woman. Well, he played this video game. It was disgusting. Okay, well, it wasn't for you. It's for the young men that watch my show that play video games. Are you one of their moms? Am I in the basement of one of my friends' houses and we're playing video games and mom came down the stairs and said, "You boys, I mean, we're in America. This is politics. What do you mean?" And this is just how it goes. And everybody entertains this. And they dismiss me as like some woman-hating, virgin, incel, whatever. And I'm the only one with any kind of traditional disposition. It's not about hating women. I don't hate women actually at all. I actually find women to be pleasant when they act like women. It's not about hating women. It's not about disrespecting women or being cruel towards women. Women are actually amazing when they actually act like women, when they are pleasant, when they smile, when they know their place, when they know their role. And men have a place too. Men have a role. And women have a role too. Women don't like to be told that. My place, my role. Yes, yes, ma'am. You have a place, you have a role, just like men do. A man's place is to be in the front line during danger. That's our place. In an emergency, in danger. A man's role is to provide and to protect. That's our place. Your place is to be nice. Your place is to be pleasant, nice, beautiful, virtuous, raise the kids, take care of the home, support your man. That's your place. That's your role. And when women act like women, it's a beautiful thing. But we have a country of women LARPing as men, dressing like men, talking like men, acting like men, but they're not men, and they can never be held accountable like men. They can never be men. They're never going to be fighting in the war. They're never going to be the cops, the firemen. They're never going to be the garbage men. You're never going to see them cleaning the windows on a skyscraper. You're never going to see them at the top of a radio tower. You're never going to see them running the electrical grid or inventing anything. And when are conservative men going to learn? All I get are these wife guy, girl dad doofuses. Tucker Carlson is emblematic of that. He's a sissy. He's a wife guy, girl dad. He says, I'm afraid of women. I think you're afraid of your wife. Tucker says, Nick is steadfast and strong. No, he's afraid of women. I think you're just a pussy worshiper. I think you're just whipped for your wife. Talking to me about it's our job to please our wives. Happy life, happy life. Happy wife, happy life, he tells me. And I'm just afraid of women. No, we just reject this girl dad, wife guy bullshit, frankly. Maybe that works for you. That doesn't work for us. Maybe that worked in your generation. That doesn't work in our generation. You know, and you sound like an old person when you talk like that. Happy wife, happy life. If that was our mentality, we would get eaten alive. Because that, you know, now that women are on basically a form of welfare, now that they have Instagram, if you're just endlessly pleasing some woman, you know what's going to happen? You're going to be like Piers Morgan. That's happy wife, happy life in action. Piers Morgan and Tucker, two wife guy girl dads getting together, getting cucked by their wives. I do half the chores. I please my wife, and she's over there pleasing Mr. Suds. She's over there pleasing every guy that's on her Ashley Madison account. So give me a break with that. Anyway, that's just sort of an extended, that was your extra innings there. Little downloadable content at the end there. We're going to move on. We're going to get into our super chats. We'll see what you guys have to say about all this. We'll talk about Venezuela tomorrow. I covered everything I wanted to. We'll dive into the super chats. Isn't that true, though? That's the thing. You know, I don't know if people are lying about me or what. Do people think that I genuinely hate non-whites, Jews, women? I really don't. If that means anything to you, if that's worth anything, I really don't. I really don't hate anybody. I don't wake up with hatred for anybody. And I love all of them in their proper place. I like propriety. And it is proper for non-white people to be somewhat deferential in a country that was founded by whites. And by that, I mean, we want them to be courteous. We want them to be considerate. We want them to have a little bit of acknowledgement. And I'm not talking maybe about blacks as much, but for all of these immigrants and descendants of immigrants, how about a little bit of reverence for the country that welcomed you in? I don't hate you. I don't want you dead. I don't want you out of my country because you're non-white. What I expect is a little bit of reverence for the country that graciously welcomed you in. If you want to stay here, if you want to call yourself American, then act like it. Be an asset, not a liability. Be courteous, be respectful. Have some fucking respect for the country and the people that built it, that graciously allowed you in. Where's your obligation? We have this obligation, endless tolerance, endless acceptance, always more welcoming. What is their end of the bargain? They come into this country that was built by whites. It's peaceful, it's prosperous, there's a legal system, and there's no obligation at all. They don't have to do it legally. They don't have to love the country. They don't have to love the flag or any of it. They're going to be burning Waymos in California when illegals get deported. I mean, what is that? And the same goes for women. People say you hate women. I do love women. I love my mother. I loved my grandmother. I love my sister, and I love a lot of women that are in our movement. I love Michelle Malkin. I love Gina Bontempo. I love Roaming Millennial. I love a lot of these women because they're women. And not to simp, but they're beautiful, they're smart, they're pleasant to be around, they're mothers, homemakers. They're what a woman should be. I don't like these women that LARP as men. It's odious. And the same goes for Jews. You want to be a Jew and make your movies and do your thing, okay, but stop apostatizing my country. Stop subverting my country. You want to be a Jew in Hollywood? All right, you seem to make the best movies. But let's make a movie about Jesus every now and then. How about that? And let's stop making movies glorifying drug abuse and murder and rape and homosexuality and all this other stuff. Let's make something patriotic. You could do it. And if you can't, then maybe we take your studio from you. Maybe we take all your stuff from you. Anyway, that's just a little aside. Another little aside. All right, but let's take a look at our super chats. We'll see what you guys have to say about this. That's my America First vision. I want a country that is harmonious. I want a country where men and women cooperate and live in harmony. I want a country where whites and blacks cooperate and live in harmony. I want a country where Jews and Christians cooperate and live in harmony. I don't want to live in a country where white, straight, Christian men are being murdered and expropriated for all of their privileges, power, rights, for groups that hate them. Like, that's not harmony. That's not actually good for everybody. Let's not kill the golden goose that laid the golden egg. Or whatever the expression is. The goose that laid the golden egg. You know, I like the word harmony because it implies that although we have differences, we can work together. Although we have differences, we can acknowledge them, we can be aware of them, and we can find complementarity, and we can work in a way where it's positive. I like that word, but I don't like words like tolerance. What does it mean to tolerate something? If you come to my house and I say, hey, yeah, come over for a few hours, I'll tolerate you. What does that mean? Do you feel good about that? Let's tolerate everyone. Let's tolerate everything. Toleration, that doesn't actually sound great. Or whatever, diversity. Not really a great word. Is diversity inherently good? I mean, no, not inherently. Can be, but not. It doesn't necessarily lead to good things. And depending upon what you mean by that, racial diversity actually sounds like a recipe for disaster for a giant country. So I like harmony, cooperation. We can recognize there's distinct things that can mesh on the basis of a common interest. Anyway, but let's keep going here. Let's get on into the super chats. No more stalling. All right, here we go.
You may be good, send $50. Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Let's get right into it. What sucks about this episode is that most people will, perhaps rightfully so, I mean, I'll let y'all decide, but most people will pay attention to what Nick said in the first 99% of this video and never even tap into the last percentage or 2%. I don't know what it was, but the last 5 minutes of what he was discussing in that monologue, where he's talking about more from a united front, bringing people together, uniting in harmony. This is the world that he wants. I think that it's very telling that, what is very telling now that I'm thinking about it? Okay, so that's very telling as far as where I believe Nick's mental is, and perhaps where a lot of people would say that his heart is. And I got asked the question by my bro earlier on today's show. It's like, yo, what do you think about Nick Fuentes? Like, what do you think he actually feels on a lot of these issues? Because a lot of times we'll watch a show like this where he's going off, you know, he'll lean into some of those descriptions that he'll make, certain words that he'll call Candace Owens, even when he says like black or letting this uppity black, y'all get what I'm saying. And it'll come across in a way that makes him very easily painted in a picture of, oh, he's racist, he's misogynist, he's anti-Semite, whatever it is that they're calling him at that particular day, to paint him in whatever picture they need to that suits their agenda at that time, so they can convince everybody else not to entertain anything that he's saying, not even to even listen to him. But when he actually goes into depth or just explains his thoughts like he did at the end of the show, what it makes me say about the other stuff is that he's just frustrated. He's just frustrated. We talk about this all the time, how a lot of these movements grow very rapidly when you have a guy like Nick Fuentes or anybody else that is willing to step up and stand on certain things that the majority of the people are already pissed off about. So now they have a representation that shows how frustrated they are. Nick Fuentes willing to call out this stuff in ways that not a lot of other people are willing to call it out on. People get behind that. People get behind that. And what it can sometimes do, Nick may not care, may care, but when I hear things like he said at the end of the show, I think that he actually does care, but then he gets pushed into a corner of frustration or pushed into whatever area where he then lashes out, and it no longer becomes caring about everybody. It's like, no, we need to prioritize white Americans, like the nerve of these people doing all this other stuff. And what ends up happening is you lump everybody in the same category. Now, maybe that's just the strategy. I'm not even opposing the strategy. I'm just trying to explain some of the things that I believe are happening when he's having these conversations. And y'all can feel free to share, your perspective on it as well. I'm just giving y'all mine. Hopefully y'all value that. I'm not just getting up here and agreeing with everything Nick says and repeating his talking points. But he mentioned something that it is improper for non-white people it is proper for non-white people to be deferential to whites. And he said that he's not talking about blacks, which is him going out of his way actually to let it be known, like, okay, black people do not fall into this category, but a lot of these other people who are coming here, they should be deferential to the white Americans that built it. And since he said he's not talking about black people, I'm going to throw black Americans in there as well. But the foundational Americans, the people that have been here for a long period of time, that have helped to build the country, that have been here for generations, that have gone through the ups and downs with the country. Obviously, it makes sense for those people to be prioritized. That's Nick's view on it. And I agree with that view. America has to prioritize Americans before we're incentivizing all these other people to come here and break our infrastructure. And then America, who's not a good business, when you look at the amount of debt that we have, if you're not a good business, then perhaps you should stop hiring people or stop bringing people into the store, because now everybody else who doesn't want people to be coming in here, because the main reason is that America can't handle us. America is unaffordable. America's all these things that make it hard for Americans to live. So why would we want other people that are going to come in that are not only going to compete with us, but drain our resources? The very people that we're going to bring in to compete with Americans when we're already complaining about the lack of opportunities that are available to us. We're actually going to be the ones that support those people. We're going to help make sure that they get an education and it's paid for. We're going to help them to make sure that they're clean, and make sure that they have food, to make sure that they have homes, all these different things. We can understand this. This is not out of the question. And this is why, once again, everybody else may not pay attention to the last 5 minutes, but I'm going to lean into it. Some people may say, well, that's convenient. You're not going to address the other things. This is where Nick was speaking his heart. The other stuff I can understand. I can understand that you get frustrated, so you may speak in a way, or you are speaking in a way that offends certain people because you're so passionate about you proving your point, and you're so locked in on what white people need to do because that's the main problem that you've chosen to address. I can understand that. Like I said on the show earlier and yesterday, we have different goals. You know, Nick and I may have different goals at different times. Now, when he speaks at the end of his show, it brings me to a place where I'm like, all right, we got the same goals. If I played that video, and I'm going to play it on my live show tomorrow, to people that like him, can't stand him, love him, whatever, all over the place, and try to find somebody who can disagree with the things that he was presenting in the last couple minutes of his conversation on his show. Who can disagree with those things? Who can disagree with those things? So that's what, I'm going to tend to focus on. Of course, I'm going to go through the entire show. We got notes. We'll go through everything. Let's start at the top. So first off, the whole Venezuela thing is wild. We're only going to spend a couple minutes on that. But the Venezuela, like Trump, and I didn't see Trump say this, but if Trump implied that Venezuela stole something, like if that's not the most colonization type mindset, like that's one of those, they should have that somewhere under famous colonizer quotes. Like whatever it was that he said, implying that Venezuela is stealing from us, even though it's their natural resources, and we're going to go in there, and because they weren't doing any and everything that we wanted them to do, and they were looking out for their country first, they're stealing from us, or we feel like that's somehow taking money out of our pockets. However Trump presented it, it just comes across wild. That's all I'm going to say on that. Nick believes that we have absolute idiots in control of the government. When you see the Kristi Noem stuff, and a lot of this stuff Nick always calls out, if Trump was getting some of the results that he actually said that he would, maybe this stuff wouldn't be as relevant. But with everything that has come out, first off, you're not doing as many deportations that you said. So obviously now we're going to look at Kristi Noem from a negative standpoint, just based on us associating her with Trump and the job not being done. Sold a lie on that. Then when it comes to, let's say, the Epstein issue, that's making Kash Patel look crazy. It's making Pam Bondi look crazy. It's making a lot of his staff look terrible. And then you couple that with the fact that Kash Patel looks like this is his first time ever getting girls, and he's so head over heels for his girlfriend that he's stopping to do a podcast with his girl and Stephen Miller's wife. It's like, bro, is that really, like, just because Donald Trump does stuff doesn't mean that all of these other workers for Donald Trump should be doing the same thing. Kash Patel doing a podcast, I haven't even had much time to process it, but it should look weird. It looked weird when I first swiped past it. He looks weird. He looks like one of these, Nick was talking about people being whipped by vagina later on in the show. That's exactly what Kash Patel gives off. That's what he gives off. Maybe that's not the case, but that's what it gives off to me. But all of these things, they just make you question. He mentioned Pete Hegseth in that goofy military parade. Like here, Pete Hegseth was supposed to be the guy that, modernizes and brings a shot of manhood into our country via the military. And then you see a performance like that at the parade. But besides the parade, then you see what he's doing moving forward. Like the questions of, it's manhood to do a double tap. And who knows what really happened in any of these situations. But that's just the point. When you're not accomplishing the things that you said you would accomplish, people are always going to look at you as the glass half full rather than the glass having something in it. So let's move on. So obviously Nick then goes on to spend the majority of the time talking about Candace Owens. I think he has a lot of valid points when it comes to Candace Owens. A lot of valid points. I've said already when it comes to the whole black and how he says that, but it's performative. I don't even want to spend any more time on it, but y'all get what I'm saying. And if y'all don't, it's cool too. But what happened to cocky Candace? Did her ego get the best of her? And did the viewership get to her head? Those are the questions that I was asking myself as Nick was talking. And Nick, I think, asked what happened to cocky Candace. But the question that I have is, did her ego get the best of her? And did the viewership get to her? And I think everybody has to be honest when it comes to you doing a show. A lot of times you're paying attention to how many people are in the chat. You're paying attention to how many super chats you may get. You're paying attention to how many views. You're paying attention to, oh, when I said this, I got this reaction. When I said this, I got an even bigger reaction. You're paying attention to all these things. And I do think that Candace Owens got caught up. She made this bed that she now has to sleep in. I think she set herself up in a lot of ways. Her coming out with this consistent, aggressive energy, which could have just been more so from a curious standpoint, but we know how Candace marketed herself. And it actually made me think of another question. Would we be looking at Candace the same way? Let's say if she was seen as somebody that's just being more curious, like I think of a Daryl Cooper, or maybe even an Ian Carroll to a certain point. But I think Daryl Cooper, the few times that I've seen him, even though a lot of people will say, oh, he's anti-Semitic, he said this about World War, about what's the guy, Churchill. He said this about Churchill being the chief villain. He said this, he said that. But he doesn't come across in the same aggressive way that Candace Owens comes across. And I think that it does, or has put herself in a bad position. She set herself up for this. You can't come across, like, it's getting to a point where if you keep presenting yourself as the biggest and baddest in the room, you're setting an unrealistic standard, an unrealistic bar that you have to now live up to. And all of that aggression may not have anything to do with what you're actually uncovering in an investigation. This is not a debate. I said this over and over when it came to Candace saying that she made her first mistake, acting as if, oh, I'll debate them anytime. You just name the time and the place. It's not a debate. You're a journalist. You're an investigative reporter when it comes to this. You're an investigative reporter. And I went back and looked at a bunch of the views or a bunch of the comments from people under Candace's, I think it's already got almost like 4, what does it have? Let me see the views right now. This thing has about 3.4 million views. It's almost 3.5 million views, and it hasn't even been 24 hours. It's been 19 hours. So, this is crazy. But a lot of the comments under it, they were exactly what Nick presented. And one of the biggest comments was, I forget exactly what Nick said, but it was based around that meetings are not for, like, meetings are for keeping things private, not for transparency. So if you're trying to have a meeting behind the scenes, that's not transparency. That's trying to get a deal done. That's what it said. And I agree. Private meetings are where deals happen. It's a mediation. It's a push and pull. It's like, how can we find some common ground? That's the common ground is not necessarily transparency, especially when you're selling yourself to the people as being the most transparent. It was a different energy. We know how energy works. If her energy was a bit different, saying like, hey, I'm just looking into this, instead of aggressively calling out. I mean, I believe you put out I'm talking to Candace, put out a X post a week, maybe a little bit longer than that, saying that I am now convinced that that Turning Point USA had some, and it led me to believe that, oh, okay, you believe that they're involved somehow. I don't know what that involvement is, to what extent, but you believe that they're involved somehow. And now you have a meeting with Erica Kirk that's private. So now you're in a weird position. Do you really is it really just about Charlie? Is it really about just getting to the truth in the matter? Or is it also now, because you were so aggressive with your energy, now it's also about performing on your show, because you know that your aggression has led you to have more views, to have more monetization, but now you're presenting certain things. You're boxing yourself in. You're putting yourself in a corner that is going to be very hard to get out of. And that's what she's now experiencing right now. This was probably the first time that her fans turned on her. And just as fast as they went to her and they grew, I'm seeing some of the comments saying like, yeah, I'm good on this. And a lot of the comments are more disappointing because they're looking at it from a standpoint where they're questioning themselves, saying like, yo, how did I get to this point? I saw one comment say, I just need to go outside and touch grass. I'm done with this show. Like, I just need to get grounded, put my feet on the grass. And when you have people questioning themselves based on your behavior, that's a fast recipe for you not getting those type of views. So it'll be interesting the type of viewership that she gets today and engagement. And to be totally honest with you, as I was watching the Candace's show, I got a different, because this is the first show that I've watched in a while when it comes to Candace, this much of it. I watched about the time where she started talking about Tim Pool, but I'm not sure that I had the very same takeaway from Nick Fuentes. I'm not sure that I thought what Nick Fuentes said as aggressively as he thought. Like, I didn't necessarily see Candace running, or I get why Nick would say that, but it goes back to she painted this picture in a certain way. Unless Candace just jumped on there and said, this is exactly what I asked, this was their response, I told them this, I told them that, we're looking into this, we need to make sure that everybody's on top of all these questions. This is how they answered these questions. We need to confirm. Let's make sure that we're on top of this. Unless your energy is that, bro, it's always going to come across like, you're already doing a private meeting after you turn down going out there. So you're allowing the momentum to move in a different direction. And this was very smart on Turning Point USA's on their end. This is the easy thing. They should have been did this. They should have been done this. I mean, you're going to have a live stream? Like, that was a terrible idea. Nick mentioned it and even said that, like, he was going to have to expose Candace, it seems like, on her own, because he just didn't have confidence that Turning Point USA would do it. But for an organization like Turning Point USA, what's the thing that we say about them the most? They come across extremely disingenuous and phony. Well, in a private meeting, none of that's going to come out. So now we are only relying based on Candace. And if she doesn't report it in the aggressive way, especially when you know so many people are anticipating it and you're amping it up saying, I'm highly anticipating this conversation, I think the ego got the best of her. And it's almost one of these points now where, like, what is Candace going to do now? She gets bad viewership. Is she going to pull a Trump and start turning on her followers? Like, a lot of her followers are calling her out, not necessarily turning on her, but they're calling it out. And perhaps this goes to show you exactly why you shouldn't be a fanatic of any of these people, these influencers, these politicians, anybody. Perhaps this shows why we shouldn't idolize or hold these people in such high regards and base our opinions based on what their opinions are on. This is what happens with fanaticism. People invested too much in Candace, perhaps. They invested too much of whatever inside of them. Like, they invested all of that in Candace. And now when they didn't get a return on investment, they're frustrated. They feel like they played themselves. And of course, all that blame is going to go to Candace. So we'll see what happens moving forward. The last thing that I want to address is Nick calling out George Farmer, saying that he needs to put Candace in his place. Now, this George Farmer is Candace's husband. It was very hard for me. I didn't disagree with anything. I'm trying to think if I did. It's hard to say I didn't disagree with anything, and then you go back and look, oh, well, I didn't. Based on my recollection and my notes, I'll tell you exactly where Nick was spot on. When I saw, and Nick said that she called Tim Pool a B. I believe she was calling him that before, but what I saw, he said that, no, Nick said that he called her something else, or that she called him something else. And I'm not saying that she did, but what got me when I noticed was a tweet that went out where he called her a B, where she called him a B. She was calling Tim Pool, and something just stood out to me like, nah, that's not cool. And she's done this before, and it made me feel the same type of way. That's a corny way of bullying. Like, it's a corny way of bullying, because, as a man, if a woman calls you that, what do? If another man calls you that, they have to show you why you're that. And there can be a physical altercation and it be accepted. When it comes to women, it's a bullying tactic, because she knows that she could say that and he can't respond. So I agree. When Nick says that George Farmer has something coming to him by keep allowing his wife to be talking to other men like this, women should never be speaking to men like this, ever. Now, a lot of people won't call this out. I'm glad that Nick called this out. No woman should ever be speaking to a man like that. Unless you want to address a man in a physical way, then you shouldn't be speaking to a man like that. I don't think anybody should be speaking to anybody, but it becomes a bullying tactic when women do it, because now they know that they can hide behind being a woman. Now, if, let's say, somebody does some of the things that Nick suggested when he was being hyperbolic, obviously, when he's saying like, George Farmer, can I slap your wife, or are you gonna slap her? When he says certain things like that, it should make George Farmer think twice about what he's allowing his wife to present herself as and their family. Putting that type of, I don't like those type of games, man. I don't like those type of games when women act like men. If you want to, and shame on that man. That shows, that to me is one of the things that perhaps shows Candace's true colors. When Nick talks about her having this more liberal background and stuff like that, and her coming across more like a Karen type of mind, that's what shows that, because it's a bullying tactic. It's something that there's no way that Candace could have grown up. You know, she likes to talk about her grandfather all the time. There's no way that anybody grew up with proper male leadership, and you don't think that those people that you grew up with would have a problem with you saying those words, calling Tim Pool those words, referring to another man. It doesn't matter who that man is, referring to another man in those words. There's no way a man would have just said like, nah, yo, you chill out. You chill out. I'll address it from this point on, to where you feel like you got to call somebody a B or something like that, or just don't use that language. If you got to use that language to discuss somebody, then you don't need to be online. And this is the conversation that Nick looks very supportive when he says that's why women don't need to be in politics. That instance shows exactly what Kev Samuels used to always talk about. Women want the power of men, the privilege of women, and the accountability of children. That's what Candace Owens just exhibited in that. Now, she could do whatever she wants, doesn't matter, but I don't think men are being honest in saying that that's in condoning that or being complicit in that, thinking that that's okay. There's nothing at all okay with that, and it bothers me a significant amount, because these are the type of games that women have been allowed to play with men. These are the type of games that this society has okayed with the Me Too movement, believe all women, this feminist, talking about toxic masculinity, but never ever bringing up toxic femininity. That's exactly what this is. If you want to talk, it's almost like one of those things where you have kids that get to an age, especially young men, where you feel like you can talk to your father as a man. And it's like, okay, there's a lot of other stuff that comes along with that. So if you want to talk to me as a man, then there's other things that are going to come along where I'm going to treat you like you're a man. So this would be my same stance when it comes to Candace. Stop doing that. You're not ready to, you're not, I'm not even going to ask you if. No, you can't talk to a man like that, because you can't approach a man as if you are a man. And this is where George Farmer and his weak leadership, in my opinion, comes into play. Control your chick. And Nick is spot on. Just how he said it, B word. That's one of those B's that I don't, normally when Nick is over here saying Candace, this black, and he's using the B word, I've spoke on it. But when it comes to something like this, nah, absolutely. Get your chick. Get her. Matter of fact, now you and I got a problem, because you're allowing your woman to disrespect me like this, which means that you're not checking it, you're disrespecting me. So I'm 100% on board when Nick speaks on that. I don't like that. I think y'all get the point. This reminds me of that Sean Penn video. They're gonna put Nick Fuentes next to that Sean Penn video when Sean Penn was like, yeah, you slap around your woman a little bit, Yeah, they're gonna put that next to that video. I don't need to be speaking on this. Next thing you know, they're gonna be saying that I'm condoning this, I'm condoning that. Nah, I'm condoning nipping it in the bud, and a woman never address a man like that in her life, and we can prevent a whole lot of problems. So that's all y'all got from me today. Y'all let me know what y'all think. Like, continue to subscribe. Please turn your notifications on. As we always say, we control the algorithm. We don't let the algorithm control us. Super appreciative and grateful for y'all, man. Super appreciative and grateful. Let me know what I may be missing. Of course, my bias may come into play and create some blind spots. That's why I got y'all, my family, who can always get me on track, provide a bit more context and clarity. So on that note, I appreciate y'all. Continue to like, continue to subscribe, and I'll see y'all on the next video.
It's the black guy in the corner. but they'd rather see a nigga on the corner. They say I'm stealing Nick's clips like I'm stealing Nick's chick, not knowing that I hit him first week for the lick. I said, Nick, I could post here while you post there. Let's run the ads up, then let's meet up over there. Let's figure out a split that's honorable and fair. Tell me where you trying to take it. Bro, I'll meet you there. 1600 Penn, Wash, DC. Swear I saw the vision riding through the DMV. I envision prayers, but I could do VP. Hillbilly, Elegy, fuck, I look like JD. Shout out my cheat code, Dave and Karen raised me. And my big bro, a nuclear family.
And they don't like that. Strong fathers in the crib, BLM for that. LBJ society created all that. Victimhood mentality, I can't embrace that. And everything they taught in school, assume it's all cap. Everything I said I'd be, I am that. Everything I said I'd be, I am that. Everything I said I'd be, I am that. Ain't no introduction, just some fun facts. In case you were wondering, I am that.
I know you heard me hit it 3 times for Dr. Umar. Shout out to Umar, man. We ain't kicking nobody when they down. And shout out to everybody that continues to show love, support, appreciating the message that I'm giving y'all along with the bro Nick's message. We gonna keep pushing, man. And shout out to the haters too, cause y'all in the comments heavy too. y'all the ones that gave me the inspiration to create this song. They kept saying like, who's the random black guy in the corner? I am.